Well, if you're really so determined to have a fight, then I'll oblige.
Hello everybody listening to this around the world on YouTube. My name is Ben Johnson. I am the host of the Kung Fu Movie Guide podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation from our archive. The conversation you are about to hear was originally released on the 5th of March 2018. It features my conversation with Taimak, the star of the cult 1985 Motown-produced martial arts classic The Last Dragon. Remember, you can subscribe to the Kung Fu Movie Guide podcast right now, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. That is the best way to make sure that you never miss a brand new episode. Since launching in 2016, we have spoken to some of the biggest names from the world of martial arts action movies. You can listen back to all of our previous episodes via your podcast provider and via our website, kungfumovieguide.com. That is also where you will be able to read the latest martial arts movie reviews and information, as well as sign up to our newsletter, donate to the Kung Fu Movie Guide, and find ways to get in touch. If you would like to contact us, then please do. We do love to hear from you. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I will be back at the end of this conversation to sign off properly, but until then, here we go. Here is my conversation with Taimak.
I grew up in I spent time in Europe when I was a kid, and I lived in London. So,
yeah. You know London quite well. Then, have you been back since?
Only once, and not for very long. But there's a gentleman doing a Last Dragon screening in Switzerland for the 18th time.
Yeah, right.
And he was talking to me about enrolling other people in Europe to have screenings out there so people can meet me, because I've never done anything except for one time in Berlin last year.
You must be surprised at sort of the reactions, I guess, it's when you're going around, just particularly other countries as well, to see the reaction of that movie. That must be quite a humbling experience, is it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm used to it now.
Yeah.
But it's always kind of it's always fun, and it's always surreal. Because it's people love the movie so much, and then a lot of new people. It's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit more about Last Dragon, I guess, in a little bit. But I'm excited about Master. Am I right in thinking this is kind of a sequel to The Last Dragon?
Well, I wouldn't call it that, because
Sure.
It's a completely different era. I mean, the character is like a grown-up version of Bruce Leroy from The Last Dragon. However, it was inspired by the films that I grew up with, the Shaw Brothers films and Bruce Lee, and all those amazing movies that I grew up with. It's almost like the musicals of the 1950s and stuff in Hollywood. Yeah. They just vanished in a way, and I see that at least in America, this genre has died,
Yeah, I guess what sort of died is that approach and that style of filmmaking as well, because they don't really film kung fu fight scenes like that anymore.
No, I mean, the Asian, look at Ip Man with Donnie Yen. He does it, but it's kind of, basically there are period pieces where the choreography is a big part of the whole entertainment value of the film. Yeah. And that I don't see it in America. I see Game of Thrones, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
But I think Master is like a mixture of Game of Thrones and Kung Fu theater, you know?
So that was the initial inspiration then, was to come up with a concept that where you could try and, you know, replicate that magic of the old school Kung Fu movies then. That was your original idea with it.
Yeah, that, and also I saw a need for a character. You know, martial arts has got a brand in America that's kind of just testosterone-driven madness, and the spiritual aspects of it and the philosophy aspects of it have fell by the wayside, you know. So it was also looking to bring that back, because that was part of the whole Shaw Brothers thing too, you know. How
are you finding this process, this sort of crowdfunding? I know you've got an Indiegogo page set up there. There's lots of things that people can win if they invest lots of money, and giveaways and that kind of thing. Are you enjoying that? It's a different ball game, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah. Well, me and IW Group, this is our first time at an Indiegogo, and what oddly enough, it was kind of a experience and an experimental, in the sense that we raised some money, but we didn't raise nearly what we wanted to raise, and we didn't discover what the problem was until later in the campaign. The thing was, Telly and IW Group worked with me and Alamo Draft House, and having a tour around the states in about 8, 9, 10 different cities, and to draw interest. And what we found is that fans, when they came and hung out with me and, you know, and had taken pictures, they got so fulfilled that they weren't going to the page as much to buy things and to experience, because they already had spent so much time with me.
Sure.
And the Q&A and everything. So we found that the people were giving money when I did Facebook Live, and they were buying things and more engaged, because they don't see me in person, and they're getting a piece of Master and some Last Dragon pictures and so forth, you know, from online. They're not with me, you know, so it was interesting.
And I guess it's easy then, once they're online, to just everything's set up now. If they want to just put over a few dollars just to help with the process, it's dead easy to do that, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
That's what we noticed is the thing, is like the Facebook Live really was the key, because every time I would do it, we see donations, we see people buying things, we're like, oh, okay, they're already on the computer. They're not in a movie theater hanging out with me, you know. However, at the same time, it is good that I get out and be with fans, and so they can see what I'm up to and meet me in person. So it's not like I still want to do more screenings. I want to make more appearances, because they're great, you know. And I have a really great time with people doing it. There's a few people really fired up to get a Last Dragon 2 together, and so now I've got these different projects, and they're all getting attention, and it's a good thing.
With regards to doing a sequel to The Last Dragon, is there some rights issues with that or anything? It's one of those movies that I'm sure, is it sort of protected and locked away in some studio somewhere, and they're, you know, they're
right.
protective of that? Or?
You know how it is. You know, it's a lot of the times it's about the money.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not relying on it. I'm just seeing that people would like to see it, you know, a lot of people. So I'm making the attempt, my best attempt, to come up with something that's going to be, you know, better than good and extraordinary, and a lot, and that would be beneficial for Sony as well, you know. So, you know, I left Hollywood quite a while ago. I was not happy there, and I realized, this is years ago, and I realized a lot of time went by, and people keep asking me what's going on, why aren't I in this Expendables, why aren't I in this other Netflix series, and people don't understand that there's you know, there's a third party involved. There's agents and managers and this and that are the ones that are the go-between. Will an agent believe in you and push you in places that, let's say, a cast director or a producer of a show, let's say Expendables. I heard about him, but I don't know him. So you need an agent. You need an agent either very stubborn and very aggressive, or a very powerful agent. But how do you get that agent? How do you create that relationship? So it's a lot of work, You're
auditioning still for stuff as well, though,
I haven't auditioned in years. I've been creating my own things,
Yeah.
In America, I don't know about Europe, but they tend to treat actors badly, Look at the thing that happened with Harvey Weinstein, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's pretty pervasive, So sometimes, you'll go to an audition and they'll treat you a certain way. So that a lot of times that happens because you're not set up properly by the agent or, let's say, a manager. So those experiences aren't always fun, or they're not always productive.
You say something in your book, Ty, that I thought was interesting, where you say something along the lines of like the roles that are given particularly to black actors. If you don't want to play the gangster, or you don't want to play the funny man, then there's not much. I think you were referring back in the sort of 80s and 90s, I guess, the roles that you were being given then.
Oh yeah.
But do you think? But have we not progressed since then? Do you not think? Yeah,
sure. I mean, all this the Oscars, but I think it's. There's two sides of the sword. I think, I'll watch, let's say the whole thing with Oscars. They'll put, let's now put more black films on Oscars. They don't care if it's a good film. Let's just show black folks that we want to have them, or you see a really contrived relationship between a white person or a black person, or it's just, it's so plastic and so inauthentic, So that's why I've been focusing on my own things, and I haven't lost hope in entertainment, but I have some doubts that Hollywood really has the sense of, or the vision of, what to put out. I mean, one of the things about Europe and spending time there when I was younger, there was a level of sophistication around culture and race that I don't see here. I mean, look who we have for president. You know what I mean? So maybe we're years behind. I don't know. I just feel that there's some intelligence lacking with regard to race and how to approach it, and they're coming from fears rather than a vision.
What can be done about it, though? Do you think
people have to create intelligent projects? If you have a relationship with different races, have fun with it, and make it something authentic. Like if you have a white friend or a black friend, an Asian friend, a Latino friend, it's not about the race 99% of the time.
Yeah.
99% of the time, you're not saying, "Oh, that's my black friend," or "That's my white friend,"
Yeah. No,
but when you go to movies, it seems like they have to always point at the fact that someone's black, white, or this or that. There's a label for everything. Oh, this guy's gay, this guy's black. I'm like, okay, I kind of know that already. I mean, by the color of his skin, that was the brilliance of The Last Dragon, is that they had fun with it,
Absolutely.
And they pointed at Asian guys learning black music and really enjoying it. So it was like an honoring of the black music, and black actors were honoring Asian culture.
I saw it again recently, just as a refresh. I remember seeing it years ago. I absolutely love that movie. It's so good. And then I had a refresh, and it's still really sassy, and the music's great. The fight scenes are great. It's still a really entertaining and great movie. But you're totally right. It's like a cross-cultural movie. There's not many films like it, is there? Really, you're totally right. It feels like a snapshot of what New York must have been like at that time in the 80s. All these different communities just hanging out together, and it almost seems like a timepiece now in a way, doesn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. It was a very violent city at that time. There were a lot of high crime, one of the most highest crime in the country, top 3. So there was a dark side of it, but that was what Louis Venosa, the writer, he wanted to bring some levity to it and have an entertaining movie about these characters that he would see walking around the streets of New York or at martial arts events, and it was all ego driven. And he said, well, wouldn't it be great if there was a guy like Bully, that really was, a fanatic about martial arts and Asian culture and all that. And he was the one that would really get the power of martial arts and get the girl at the end, Yeah. And he would be the hero,
Yeah.
This understated guy, that didn't know anything, yet had the integrity to be a quality human being with quality skills as a martial artist. Yeah. So it was like wanting to raise that guy on the pedestal instead of the guy that's on steroids, that's showing off and beating people up and bullying people. So it was a great message for young people.
And I mean, as much as it is there's some outrageous characters in there, then it is very much built on actual characters and people of the time. There were guys walking around like Sho'nuff. I wrote about, you read about the character that I wrote that was in my autobiography, the guy that was in my autobiography, Doc Williams. That's right. He was a bouncer.
He was a real life Sho'nuff. Yeah, he was a real life Sho'nuff.
He was a bouncer or something, but he was quite a threatening type.
He was a martial artist. He was 6'5", big, scary guy, and he would beat people up. And he had his cronies with him, But that's the dark side of it, right? So, but that's what Lewis brilliantly did. He made fun of it.
Having moved back to New York, Ty, do you recognize the New York from that time nowadays?
Oh, no, not at all. No. That's gone.
Yeah.
The only thing that's left is the excitement of being in this city, and there's so many different things going on in New York. It's an incredible city, but that's a different city, the one that I grew up in back in those days. Artists could be artists struggling back then. Now you have to live with maybe 5 artists in one room.
Yeah. That's not too different to London, to be fair. Do you kind of miss those days of New York as well, when it was a little bit sort of rough around the edges?
Well, I was a kid looking to express myself and learn about myself and have a good time, because I came from such a tough upbringing, So I wanted to get free, and I found fighting and martial arts and going to the nightlife in New York as a kid. I mean, I was 16 going, 17. I was just having a great time. Studio 54, different clubs, and the martial artists, we would all train, and then we'd go there at night. So it was the most amazing experience I could ever experience in that era, from disco, and, you had, all kinds of David Bowie, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You don't miss the violent part of it, because it was, like I said, it was high crime.
Yeah.
So there was the dark side of it, but on the other side, it's priceless. You couldn't buy it. It was too good.
You weren't born in New York, though. You were born in Los Angeles.
Yeah, my parents are from New York. They had a brief few years in L.A., and that's where they had my brother and I, and then we came back to New York.
And your parents were, judging just from the book, they seem like quite sort of bohemian types. They were, singers, and is that a fair assessment?
Their whole thing, they were part of that whole crowd of artists in New York City that were really hip, and I grew up around all those characters: Jimi Hendrix, Andy Warhol. All these people my mother friends with.
Did you recognize that these people were quite a big deal?
I didn't know that. I didn't, I was like 9 years old or 10 years old, 11 years old. So I didn't know them as big stars. I knew Bruce Lee as a big star. I knew Muhammad Ali, all these people, football and martial arts and movies. They didn't have social media or internet or music videos. So the only people I would know that was stars were actors, Paul Newman or somebody, you would know that's a star because I saw him on that show. But people like Jimi Hendrix and David Bowie, I didn't know who they were. They were just friends of my family, and they were just really nice people.
Now, is this from your time in Europe then, is it? This is when you grew up in Europe? Yeah, okay. So we're talking early 70s?
Yeah, in Europe, 70s, in Italy, 75. Andy Warhol I met through my mother when I was around the time of The Last Dragon.
There's a great story about. I love David Bowie, so any David Bowie story is great for me. But yeah, what's that story where you were living in London? Your mum was running a restaurant here in London.
Yeah.
And was Bowie coming in there to like? It was quite a famous restaurant.
Yeah. My uncle. Well, he wasn't biologically my uncle, but he was raising me and he was with us all the time. My mother introduced him to David Bowie, and he ended up being a backup singer for David Bowie.
Wow.
So what happened was, obviously getting beat or something like that, or by my parents or mother or whoever for being bad little kids running around the streets of London doing crazy things. There were some problems at home. So my brother ran away because I would hang out with David Bowie's son when we were kids, Zoe Bowie, and Angie Bowie was hanging out with my mother, and it was all like friends and family. So my brother ran away from home and they found him at David Bowie's house. David called my mother.
As you do.
Yeah.
But he was very polite though, wasn't he?
Oh, he was a sweetheart. He was great.
Yeah.
I as a kid, you never forget people like that. Of course, in and out of drugs, all of them, including my parents.
You would have been too young to really have understood all of that.
Yeah,
surely.
exactly. Because it's like marijuana was around a lot, but we didn't see. Obviously they weren't stupid. They didn't have, LSD hanging around kids. So we didn't know if somebody was tripping on something because everybody acted weird anyway. They were all artists. They were all artists, and they were all freaky and funny and alive. They were alive though.
But your parents weren't doing the drug side of things as well, though, were they? They weren't sort of mingling those. Oh, they were. Okay. Yeah.
It's 19.
It's the 70s, isn't it?
This is the heyday of it. They didn't know how bad it was till later.
I'm fascinated by that time in London as well. In the early 70s, it's still coming out of that swinging 60s there was a real, culture boom going on, particularly here in London. You were obviously quite young then, but you were quite into sports. You were starting to get into
I was into football,
soccer and that kind of thing. Yeah. Did you have a football team that you followed?
I went to Chelsea, and my brother played at Pimlico, and I went to Parkwood Primary School.
Oh, wow.
And Pimlico, and of course, we were part of every team, of course.
Yeah.
We were good. We were good at soccer. Football was everything. We loved it.
So you'd look back at London as a sort of fond memories?
Oh, yeah, of course. It was every part of Europe was amazing. Although I'm here in America and I love America, there'll never be Europe to me. We were in and out of London from when I was like 7 to 11 years old, and we were in and out. And then we were in Italy and Rome until I was like 14 years old. So, going to different schools and meet in different countries. And the first day I got to Italy, I got in a fight with this kid because I had a big afro, and he was making fun, and I didn't speak Italian, and he was making fun of my hair. He's like, "Guarda la capelli!" Look at his hair. And I was like, I got in a big fight with him. My father's funny; he's Italian, and he goes, he found us, and because he heard I got in this fight, and he grabbed me by the neck, and another kid by the neck, and he pulled us together, and he looked at us. He said in Italian, he says, "You're going to be friends from now on. From now on, you're." There was no way I was going to be a friend with this kid.
No,
he was pulling my afro. It was the worst fight ever. But the culture coming back to the States was tough because I used to talk like you, mate. I had a British accent.
Oh, no, really?
I had a Cockney accent. And so I got a lot of fights coming back to New York because they're making fun of my accent. Yeah, it was terrible.
Did you pick up the martial arts by that stage, or did that come later?
I was doing it when I was really young. And then there was a hiatus when I was in Europe, and then I started again. But I started when I was 6 with my father's best friend.
That was Aikido? Was that Aikido?
That was karate.
Karate.
Yeah, karate. Yeah. And when I was very little. And then Aikido when I was 13. And then I wanted something that was more like Bruce Lee because I saw him kicking a lot. Yeah. And I started doing Taekwondo for a long time.
Yeah. Do you remember the first thing that you saw martial arts related where you were like, yes, that's going to be my thing? Can you remember?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was in Europe, and they didn't, at that time, the commercials, they didn't show violent parts of fights.
Yeah.
So it was weird. Like I saw Bruce Lee, and that was it. I was like mesmerized.
Wow. This would have been just on on the TV.
Yeah. So I was like, who the hell's that? I was like, what the hell? I'd never seen anybody like that. I went crazy.
Yeah. But you would have been quite young. I mean, you wouldn't have been able to see his movies at that stage.
Right. I was like 11 or 12, and they didn't let you see. I guess they were R-rated. I don't know. I guess so back then. Yeah. Because the content of the violence or something. Yeah. Now it's like a video game.
Yeah. It always surprises me that some of those old movies that were X-rated, you watch them now and it's like it's mad, and then you see like John Wick and that gets like 15-year-olds can see that. It's it's crazy. But yeah, so that was the moment you saw Bruce Lee. That was the big bang moment for you then, was it? And it was like, yes, this is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, and then when I was in New York at 14, 15, 16, I was always going to these kung fu movies on 42nd Street. That was part of it too. Sonny Chiba, I have to mention Sonny Chiba too.
Sonny Chiba, yes, of course, the Street Fighter. That's fantastic. I mean, so just describe, because obviously, as we were saying earlier, the New York of today is very it's very different to the old 42nd Street and those old sort of grindhouse cinemas, I guess. But could you just paint a picture of what you would have been a teenager going along and watching? These old kung fu movies in, what was the environment like when you were going into these
it's funny because when I was in Berlin, I wasn't there. I would see some theaters. I saw something. It reminded me a little bit of, not that it was violent. It wasn't violent. It's not violent in Berlin, but just it's not. It's something about it reminded me of New York back in the day.
Really?
But
it's got an edge to it, hasn't it? Berlin's got an edge to it still. I'd
also the artists. There's a lot of artists there. So
yeah.
I don't see that in Manhattan much anymore, at all. But back in the day, so I would come home from school, and I would just put my stuff away, maybe do some homework, and then, but maybe not, probably not.
Yeah.
I'd get on the train, and you'd have a token back then. You get a token. You get on this clunky train, clack-a-dack, clack-a-dack, clack-a-dack.
Yeah.
It was like they called it the Iron Horse. And,
sure.
And you go to the Deuce, 42nd. When you get out, you stick your chest out a little bit, like, don't F with me, because there was a bunch of junkies and con artists and rapists and muggers and everything else
just surrounding the center.
On that block. That was the worst block.
Yeah. And you must have been pretty nervous working your way through all of that.
Yeah. When I got in the theater, I was nervous. I made sure I didn't sit too close to anybody. Porn movies and martial arts movies, that's the only thing that played there, really. Some westerns sometimes. It was cheap. It was like $2. It was like $2 or $3. And you'd watch like 3 movies.
Would there be like drug deals going on in there as well then? And just
selling weed. Or you'd smell the weed when you walk in.
Yeah. But
the culture was guys from different neighborhoods. We all, the one thing that was consistent was everybody loved these movies, these martial arts movies. So even though you didn't want to talk to anybody on a personal level in the theater, when people would say something funny, everybody would laugh, So there's a culture there that was hilarious.
Yeah, it sounds like there was a genuine sort of unique community thing going on there, just with those screenings and that love and appreciation of those old kung fu movies. That must have, that's hard to replicate nowadays, isn't it? I guess what that must have felt like to have been in there at that time.
Well, The Last Dragon was a cartoon version of it. They brought levity to it. But just imagine that scene where I was in the theater being more real violent. It's not fun. It wasn't funny. But there was, but at the same time, there was a lot of funny things that happened.
Yeah. Can you remember? So this would have been your first exposure to, I'm guessing, a lot of Shaw Brothers stuff, a lot of Bruce Lee movies.
Master Killer, Gordon Liu, the Shaolin movies, 18 Bronze Men.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was
great films.
I went crazy when I saw Shogun's Assassin, the samurai movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1980, I think, came out.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, okay, so you were going there to 42nd Street, you were watching all these movies, and you were training, and you were competing at this stage as well.
Yeah, I would leave and go kickbox at nighttime. I would take a train for like 45 minutes in the freezing cold, and I would train all night in a freezing cold gym called City Star Kickboxing. They didn't have any kickboxing around. It wasn't common, so you'd have to find place, and you go to the different kickboxing events, and you find out who, you see who was a good fighter, and you say, who's your coach? You say, oh, it was City Star, Eddie Encarnacion, he's good, yeah. So you go over there.
And you were happy to just like go along to wherever and sort of pick up, because I guess it's not like nowadays where you just go on the internet, I guess, and you just type in Kung Fu School, this is there. Yeah.
No, exactly. And everything was more traditional. You go to a karate studio, you're going to clean their floors at the end of the workout, and you're going to bow, and you're going to get your ass beat if you disrespect anybody.
You were there for the self-defense purposes at this stage, then, because as you were saying, it was quite violent in New York at that time. And so
everybody did martial arts because they didn't want to get their ass kicked.
Yeah,
that's what people did.
Yeah,
at least those type of martial arts.
I've got to say, obviously, you were trained, of course, by Ron Van Clief. I don't know if he's still is he still a friend of yours? You keep in touch with Ron quite a bit?
Not much, but when I was a kid, he was one of the guys I looked up to because he was like feared among a lot of people in New York as a really great fighter. He was a karate champion, and he didn't mess around,
Yeah.
And he was really tough and destructive,
Yeah.
So, he came out of Vietnam and, and Marine and that type of thing. So, definitely he was somebody that I want to make sure I learned from one of the toughest guys, and he was one.
Yeah. I mean, he's the real deal, isn't he? Really. I mean, you can see that even in the the Black Dragon, the films that he was making. When he's doing his kata, he's
you knew that he was a real
absolutely
fighter.
Yeah,
there was a difference when he threw a kick or a punch or a chop, and some of these other guys did.
Yeah,
and that's what I recognized right away because I was fighting already before I saw him, and then I said, okay, I can tell he's real, and then I said, okay, I'll train with that guy, and and he was like a UFC fighter before they had the UFC. I mean, in fact, he was the oldest guy ever to go into the UFC.
Yeah,
he lost to Royce Gracie, but still, that was the attitude back in the days in New York City. In those days, you'd move your car the wrong way, a guy would scream at you from his car and want to get out with a bat.
Yeah.
Guys that literally carried bats in their car.
Wow.
I found, for me, especially coming from that environment, that transformation was the most important part of martial arts.
Yeah.
It's the things that Bruce Lee talked about, and transformation in all aspects of martial arts and integrity. So your training, has to have integrity, and meaning that it has to, you have to be challenged and open to the training, and you have to work very hard.
Yeah.
And there's discipline and all those things. And then there's life. So martial arts should be something that you learn from on a spiritual basis, finding your inner passions and your inner spirit that can drive you to be the best person you can be in every area of your life. That's the real, being a leader, having courage. Those are all the things that make a great martial artist. Not obviously the fighting is not the main thing. The fighting is only for self-defense.
Yeah.
Or in some they have sports, but as far as martial arts and life, it's all about courage, fear, and leadership, and actions.
How much did you know about The Last Dragon before you were auditioning for it, or was it?
Well, just imagine if, let's say, I don't know, Jay-Z said, "We're going to make the next big martial arts film with a hero it's just like what, Black Panther."
Yes, yeah.
But imagine it being never done before, like never seeing, a martial arts hero like that, of color.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I guess Ron Van Cleef and Jim Kelly, they were big.
Yeah, predecessors. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I guess, you know, that's the 70s, and then we're going into the 80s
time,
now.
Like 15 years, 10 years or more that you didn't see, you know?
That was the initial vision. They were going to do a martial arts movie, film it in New York. It was going to have a black hero. That's all you knew about that movie at that time. Yeah,
but he's not going to be a hard ass. He's going to be a positive role model. He's going to be something that you can aspire to be like, humble.
Yeah.
And these other guys, you know, not putting down Jim Kelly or Ron Van Cleef, they were all hard asses, tough guys.
Yeah.
Huh? And, you know, it's like today, you know, it's like a lot of the neighborhoods, you know, the kids, black or white, you know, it's about being a tough guy, you know? No. It's about being a man, but also being humble.
You were, 18 when you auditioned for that movie?
19.
And 19.
That's
wow.
right. Yeah.
No acting experience at all?
No, I did some school plays, but as a kid, but that is it. I
mean, it's a remarkable story. It's one of those stories that you read about, but you don't think will ever that doesn't actually happen. But it did actually happen to you, didn't it? So that's pretty incredible.
Well, yeah. I mean, I always, you know, Berry Gordy. You know, although I can say some bad things about him, the good thing about him was that he influenced me in the sense that made me believe that I was. He said that you got the thing that most people don't have. He said Michael Jackson and Marvin Gaye. He was mentioning that there was a thing that I had that I didn't know at first. You know.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I was popular. You know, and when I used to go out and stuff like that with my friends, but I didn't know that thing that he was talking about until I was working on The Last Dragon, and I felt it, you know. And what it is just an energy that a level of confidence that's not forced, is with you, and that I still feel that confidence, you know. So when I step in front of the camera, it's very easy, you know, for me to feel that way. But that's one thing I'd say good about him. He did bring that out for me.
Yeah. And didn't they'd hired someone else, hadn't they? Is that right?
Yeah. Because I did terrible in the first audition, and then I went back, and then they fired the guy because he didn't sign the contract, or they didn't have a contract with him, and they hired me.
I mean, that was fortuitous, wasn't it? I guess in a way, you just worked really hard.
It was destiny. It was meant to be. You know?
Yeah,
meant to be. I mean, I was definitely designed. I was definitely designed to play that role. I can tell you that much. Looking
back now, it's 30 odd years now. It's still such a great, entertaining film, isn't it? It still plays really, really well. It's such a strange film because there's as I say, it's Motown produced, so it works as kind of a music video or a way to promote, you know, a lot of the Motown artists and, you know, the accompanying soundtrack. But it is the message is very good as well, isn't it? From that martial arts.
Well, it's an odd thing that Berry Gordy doesn't come out of his cloud and really talk about how great that movie is, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only project he put his name on that I know of, you know?
Yeah, it's Berry Gordy's The Last Dragon, isn't it? Like, that's the title on the title card, yeah.
Yeah, and whether, as you read in my autobiography, the disconnect that we had was when I didn't sign a contract. However, he told me he was going to be at the meeting, and there was a real bad guy at the meeting that was really rude, and I didn't sign a contract because it was like being brokenhearted, almost like a father image promises you something, and that will work it out, and then sends the evil aunt or somebody to demean me and make me feel horrible, yeah, and so that's the reason why I didn't move forward with, and then I haven't talked to him since.
Yeah, did he just sort of shut you down after that when you didn't sign a contract?
Right,
yeah,
right.
Do you think? I mean, you know, you were only 19 then, and
that's pretty bad, right? It's pretty bad, right? It's like blaming a 19-year-old.
Well, that's what I mean. That's crazy, and I guess if you know, because the shoot went so well, and the movie was a hit, wasn't it? It made its money back. It
it did. But the thing was, he had and TriStar at the time had bigger expectations, but they had butt heads because they pegged it a black movie, and they did not promote it. It was not promoted outside of the radio stations and black radio stations, stuff like that. So although it went as high as number 2 in the country, it dropped right out of the rankings. But he was so right in that it wasn't. I've been on this tour, and it was mostly white people that were at these theaters. So it's very odd that TriStar at the time. Well, maybe it's not so odd because it was 1985 that they wouldn't promote it to all audiences in the marketing of it.
Yeah, do you feel that was its undoing then, that they pigeonholed the movie to just one specific audience? Because you're right, it's such a cross-cultural and fun movie. It's not just for one audience, is it? It's so short-sighted to even think that. But maybe was that just the way Hollywood was? That's ignorance
I'm telling you about, that I was telling you about earlier. That's ignorance I was telling you about. That the labeling of something is the downfall of a culture, of a country. These people and those people, it's good for them. And it was such a lie. Yeah.
When you see the movie now, you must be quite impressed. When I watch it again, your acting is very good in it. It seems from someone who's never...
for someone that never acted before. This
is what I mean. Like, from a first movie, and it's quite demanding of you, because you're not only doing, there's a relationship at the heart of the movie. You're doing, there's a romance going on. There's action scenes. There's lots of peril. Like, there's a lot of different emotions that you've got to portray, as well as leading this movie. I mean, you must be kind of impressed looking back and being like, yeah, bloody hell, I was 19, first movie, and that's quite a lot to take on, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was and there was all kinds of characters that wanted the part. They were trying to treat me really bad. They were working on the set, and they wanted the role. Yeah, it was a lot to take on. I mean, because you had to deal with haters as well as lovers.
But you just had a real confidence, did you, on sets? You were like, no, I've got this. This is going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, Berry Gordy and the acting coach Richard Fancy helped a lot. Because it was Berry Gordy's baby. He was on set every day. He was working with me every day. He knew that if I didn't perform well, then the movie was not going to work.
Yeah. And he was supportive as well. Then he was sort of quite nurturing on sets. Then.
Very much so. Yeah. Of course, that's why it was very upsetting for me when when he didn't show up at the meeting with to do more movies. Yeah. And I stayed at his house, in Beverly Hills.
Really, that was after the movie, then, was it?
Yeah, I stayed at his house during the premiere of the movie. It was a huge premiere in L.A. at Century City with all these stars showed up and everything, yeah.
Do you have any regrets about that sort of stage after the movie? I know that contract was initially offered to you there for Motown, but, for whatever reason, you didn't, sign it in the end. I mean, do you think...
No, I don't have any regrets or anything in my life. The thing was, I was too young and too imbalanced emotionally to be able to deal with it would have been, I would have probably had a really tumultuous time as a young star doing another movie. I wasn't emotionally stable. I was a kid, and I didn't have the background of, there was no real trust going on between me and these people.
Yeah, and I guess being thrown into that Hollywood system before even really understanding how that works, because it's such a ruthless industry, isn't it? And you're dealing with huge execs, and it's a real.
Yeah. I'm happy that it didn't work out, because I was able to find myself. I wouldn't have found myself with them. But
you had fun working with Julius Carry, Sho'nuff, Shogun of Harlem. He's really chewing the scenery, isn't he? He's so good in that film. He was excellent.
He was the best. Vanity was beautiful, and she's like a shining light. Unfortunately, she's gone. So Julius, everybody was just amazing.
Yeah, Vanity was a singer in her own. Was she a star in her own right? She'd come from a group, hadn't she?
Prince early on, and then she was.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the reasons why she did The Last Dragon, she was trying to give her a more wholesome image. But of course, Hollywood was already smitten by his sexually charged stuff that she did with Prince, so it was like no coming back.
Sure.
But however, she did a great job with The Last Dragon. You know, it's just
she's fantastic.
She needed a real great management team to start getting her other roles that weren't so sexually charged. Yeah.
You kind of had a sometimes positive, sometimes negative relationship on set. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we went on a few dates in the beginning, but when we started shooting, she got real bossy. Like, you should sit there during the scene. Tell me what to do. Really? And I was like, look, there's only one director.
Yeah. And Julius, obviously, he was a good he was a good laugh on set then, was he?
Yeah, he would start fights with me, but he was afraid to fight for real. So he'd run away when I approached him. He was hilarious, but because I was laughing every time. He was very funny. Yeah. And he would stay in character all the time. Just
sort of shouting around the set.
Yeah, he'd have his cronies scare people. And he just took over the whole room when he was showing up in his costume.
At these screenings that you go to, is everyone sort of shouting the lines back? And I can imagine "Kiss My Converse" and all this stuff is happening. Yeah,
they go crazy. They love it.
I mean, looking back now and seeing that instant, the adoration that that film has gathered over the years. Are you surprised in a way? Because do you feel that the film was undervalued at the time, and that
very much so. Very much so. I mean, it was worse than undervalued. It was almost like they didn't want it to be seen. Yeah. It was. I don't know. It was strange, very strange.
Yeah.
I think maybe Berry Gordy had something to do with that. I mean, he hasn't, pushed this at all. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. But the thing is, it's love now, so that's what's. People are learning now.
And we do live in a time of reboots and remakes and that kind of thing. I mean, do you think, so there could be a Last Dragon, something else just around the corner? I know you're working hard on
talented people around me, that really want that to happen. So, all I can do is just keep training and keep having fun. That's the main thing, and get better and better, because. The circle can come around. That just, if it's in the stars, it'll happen. I'll do my very best.
Are you still doing the taekwondo, the kickboxing? Do you mix it up quite a bit?
Well, I do a little of everything. I study with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with Marcelo Garcia. I do karate that I've been doing all my life, and boxing. My stepfather was a big boxing coach, so I mix it up, and then I add some of my own. I studied Shaolin with Sifu Xiaomin. I like all of it. I love it.
Yeah. Is it easier or harder as you're getting older? Are you noticing any sort of changes in the body?
Yeah, of course you feel different.
Yeah.
But like Bruce Lee, I'm a dragon.
Yeah. Tai, thank you so much for talking to me today. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was great talking to you too, and I'll be seeing you soon out in the UK.
Thank you so much for listening. I do hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation from the Kung Fu Movie Guide podcast. If you have enjoyed it, then please do like the show, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment or share it with your friends. For more episodes, head over to kungfumovieguide.com and wherever it is that you get your podcasts. You can also contact the show and keep up to date with all our latest news via social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And you can also email me. The email address is hello@kungfumovieguide.com. Okay, this is Ben Johnson signing off. Thank you so much for listening to this episode on our YouTube channel. Until we meet again, do take care and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.